The curtain goes up on a new attraction in New York. Shea Stadium, new home of Casey Stengel's New York Mets. There's a massive traffic jam as 50,000 fans flock to the season's opener. But all of the irritations and frustrations are forgotten in the plush splendor of the new park. No need to walk. 21 escalators whisk you to all levels. The scoreboard can play back outstanding fielding and batting plays immediately, but everyone agreed that no one would want a playback of Casey leading Guy Lombardo's orchestra. This was one of the few sour notes heard all day. Historians were quick to note that on opening day, the last place Mets drew 50,000 fans, while the New York Yankees, perennial winners, drew only 12,000 on their opener the day before. We don't like to mention it, of course, but the Mets lost their first game in the new stadium when Pittsburgh downed them 4-3. But just wait till tomorrow, or the next day, or the next. Mrs. Jerry Mock pauses briefly in Oakland, California, as she nears the end of a successful round-the-world solo flight. After a quick checkout of her 11-year-old light plane, the Ohio housewife prepares to take off for Columbus on the final leg of a 23,000-mile journey. With 21 stops in 29 days, she is the first woman to make the solo world flight, and she's racked up a flock of records in the bargain as she arrives to a hearty greeting in Columbus. Tired but happy, Mrs. Mock receives a governmental award for her feat. Honor for a high-flying housewife. Australia is getting in the rocket race on a one-man scale. At Sydney, they unveil the down-under version of how to go over the top without much effort. Both Britain and the U.S. are developing these rocket lifters for troops in the field, and the Australian pogo stick seems to be among the most successful. When Bob Corder makes the first public solo hop, our cameraman swears he saw 18 kangaroos run for cover. In 17 seconds, Bob travels 120 yards, and it just takes a little help from the camera to put him right back where he came from. By the way, anyone for leapfrog? Europe's highest active volcano speaks up anew. Mount Etna in Sicily is shaken by violent explosions that hurl tons of molten rock for miles, send streams of red-hot lava down the mountainside. Since the first eruption of Mount Etna was recorded by Aeschylus in 405 BC, the slumbering volcano has been active nearly 300 times. This type of sudden explosion is rare. It last happened 50 years ago, often enough for the Sicilians. Gather round, music lovers. We have a treat just for you. In Paris, music of the future, it says here, makes its debut. A symphony for sheet steel and glass tubes. The ushers will now pass among you and hand out the earplugs. In case you're thinking of taking off for a trip to Europe or South America, take a leaf from the travel plans of these New York models. They arrive in Venezuela as fresh-looking as they were when they boarded the plane in New York. The secret? New fabric blends that stretch your travel wardrobe. That's right, madam, stretch fabrics. These are travel and sports separates that laugh at wrinkles. A copy of a fisherman's jacket that tops a slightly flared skirt. A classic traveling suit in poplin with a double-breasted blazer jacket and a slim, straight skirt. Have style, will travel. And here is things down pat with 3 coordinated pieces. The sleeveless V vest buttons up the front and tops a straight skirt, both in poplin. Underneath, a passport print blouse with long sleeves, just to give it that certain touch. It takes a lot to overshadow the scenery around Caracas, but the combination of fabrics by Klopman Mills and pretty models, well. Before we leave the girls to shift for themselves, how about this button front short-sleeved shift? Or maybe you'd prefer this V-neck sleeveless. Both are traveling companions to make your trip more pleasant. So there you have it. And if the coming travel season is offering this scenery, I must get that passport renewed.